Hey there, I'm Ton Vin, and this is Seattle Eats. You know, food goes viral all the time now. Sometimes it takes just one Instagram post or TikTok for a business to take off like a rocket. That happened to Elmer Dulla when he opened Family Friend on Beacon Hill.
The first 5 months became almost like Groundhog's Day. Long line, the room's full all night, 2.5 hour wait, going through the list, clean, sleep, wake up, same thing all over again, 7 days a week.
Let's back up. Family Friend serves food from Guam. It's the only Guamanian restaurant in Seattle, and it was just named one of the 50 best restaurants in the country by the New York Times. I can see why. It's an eclectic menu with liberated and playful cooking and clever rips on comfort food. There's corn and coconut soup, Filipino noodles, and a tostada topped with a seafood salad. But none of those dishes are the reason Family Friend took off. Today, I'm talking to Elmer about his standout menu and what happened when the restaurant became a sensation overnight. And later, for our tip of the week, I'm recommending a drink that is distinctively Pacific Northwest and only available right now. But first, let's learn more about Family Friend. Elmer Dulla was born and raised on Guam. The food at his bistro reflects that island's history. The indigenous people are Chamorro. They likely came from other islands in the North Pacific thousands of years ago. In the 1500s, Guam was colonized by Spanish explorers. The island still carries fingerprints of that culture. It became a U.S. territory in 1898 during the Spanish-American War. Today, about half of the people who live there are of Asian descent, mostly Japanese, Korean, and Filipino. Elmer's parents are Filipino. The food he was raised with reflects the history of Guam, a mix of indigenous, Spanish, Filipino, and American dishes. I sat down for a chat with Elmer one afternoon before the restaurant opened that day. The building was once a family home on Beacon Avenue. It felt like it, cozy, a lot of plants and art. From where we sat, I could see and hear staff prepping food in their tiny kitchen. Before we go into food, I want to know why Elmer opened Family Friend, especially in a hard time for the industry.
Well, I've been in the restaurant industry ever since I moved here for college. The only time you could really get anything Guamanian was at like a family party, basically. So this was my time to actually introduce things and, put things on a level where it wasn't just like potluck style.
I asked Elmer to walk me through the eclectic menu and tell me the origins of some dishes. He started with red rice,
which is one of the most common side dishes that you would get at any family party or gathering or celebrations. That achote plant that was brought from Central America to Guam, and they use that outside of the seed, which is a natto seed, to help color the rice, and it has some sort of peppery, sweet flavor. On Mexican influence, we have the tostada. So the tostada is one of the vessels for kelaguen, which is it's basically like a Guam-style ceviche. And the seafood that's on it is shrimp and octopus, which were on Guam, the kelaguen, there's all different types of proteins. The most common one you would get is chicken kelaguen. And, so here I put my two favorite kelaguens that I would together on top of this tostada, which is, the vessel. And then we do a shrimp crema with coconut milk on the bottom.
So the place is called Family Friend, one word.
Yep.
Tell me how that name came about.
That was just how I grew up, we would always have big parties, big family gatherings. You would call everyone auntie, uncle, cousin, blah, blah, blah. But realizing later on, we were never really related. We're never blood related, but we were always as close as family. Everyone that came into our circle, we always treated them, just the same way we would treat our family. So that's just how it stuck.
So this is Guam food or Guamanian food?
Yeah.
So why is there a burger on the menu?
Yeah, so there's multiple reasons why the burger's on the menu. Guam being a territory is very American, and what's one of America's most coveted food item is the burger, So on Guam, I even grew up, McDonald's was always an award for doing well in school and stuff like that. I initially put it on there because I wanted it for the kids menu, I felt like, okay, we're going to try and introduce different types of things here for people. And, and because we're on Beacon Hill, there's a lot of families. So when they bring their kids in, they can easily just dish them off the burger and fries, So that was like one of the like initial thoughts. I didn't know it was going to be internet famous.
And when you first opened and this burger became internet famous, as you said, lines were 3 blocks long. I kid you not, was 3 blocks long. So how does that make you feel? Like this burger hijacked your menu.
I was scared in the beginning because, our setup here where we have a small electric kitchen, we have a 30-inch flat top and a mini fryer. I was just like, how are we going to, provide this to the masses? It was pretty intimidating when, before we opened, especially after the infatuation, we had over 100 people outside, every day before we opened. We're not a burger place. Like, we weren't built to provide burgers for all these people all at the same time. It's definitely a blessing because that helped bring in people. It was almost like bait. Like, we would bring them in here and then they would like come here specifically for the burger, which was also nice because we had all like the burger aficionados and everybody coming in thinking they were like burger experts and all this stuff, not knowing like we're an actual restaurant. We're not like a fast casual order at a counter or whatever. Like we pour your water, we bust your tables, we wash the dishes here. So it was kind of like a learning moment for everybody. Because people would come in and be like, oh, where's my burger? I'm like, there was just 60 other people that ordered the burger. Like, it's not going to come in 10, 15 minutes, So
It's not Dick's.
Yeah.
Tell people what's in the burger and how it's made.
So we use local bread from Franz Bakery. So we use a brioche bun. We do a smash burger here. So we do like a higher end ground meat, more on the fattier side. Slice of American cheese, diced up pickles and onions, and then our miso Kewpie sauce. So not extravagant, we don't do like bacon and avocado sauce and chipotle mayo and all this 13 layers, 4 different types of cheese. I love eating my burgers meat, cheese, bun, and I didn't want it to be technical. I just wanted it to be a good, consistent burger. So
it's an unami bomb.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah,
I mean, the flavor's
miso,
definitely there. Yeah,
the mayo.
Yeah, people are like, "Oh, it's salty." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's not salty. It's a different type of flavor you're experiencing right now." It's.
This is what I mean when it got out of control, Elmer. Because I recall your burger on the kids' menu was just 1 patty for the kids. You also had a 2-patty burger. But then it took on a life of its own. People order 6-stack burger, even though it wasn't on the menu, right?
Yeah.
What was the craziest?
I mean, right now, I think the record is still 10 patties right now. So, that's 30 ounces of meat. It's basically getting a meatloaf,
I blame this on the internet. It's like, oh, how did I get clicks or whatever? How did I get followers and likes? And it's like, so they have to outdo each other. So when I first went to your restaurant, I kept track. I would say 80% of your customers ordered a burger or 4, and the rest order other stuff on the menu. Mm-hmm. And now when I go to your restaurant, I say it's 50-50.
I feel like nowadays all the burger people checked it off, and then now they see, it brought them in the door. So now they see the other things on the menu. And definitely now the corn soup was probably like one of the biggest highlights now. Like that earns the trust for anyone else that tries something outside of the burger and they know it's not just about the burger. So I mean there's a lot of like advantages from having that come from the beginning, like all the burger people coming in, and now now they're regulars and they eat other things on the menu which they love. So if they do crave the burger, I always let them know, I'm like, you should have the burger. Like if you came here specifically for the burger, get the burger. Because we're not here to like tell people what to do, but if they're on a mission, you gotta like execute the mission.
Yeah. Talk about things that people love. I love the Le Beacon Bak Choy. I do think, though, it's an acquired taste. So when I first tasted it, I was like, oh, so this is why he has the burger on the menu for people who can't eat stuff like this. Because it's like liver. It's like stuff that look gross. It's the ugly delicious, as people said. Yeah. I'm fascinated that you put it on the menu. Tell me the background.
So La Paz style bak choy is basically like a noodle soup that got famous for where my dad's at in the Philippines. So that's why we put on the menu La Paz style, because that was the area where my dad's from in Iloilo that made it famous. So the broth comes from like pork bones, beef bones, fermented shrimp is one of the, the big like flavor profiles you get in it that makes it very specific to like other types of soups from the Philippines. And then, having the like offal part. So here we do like liver and intestines, which definitely makes it funky, especially like the intestines part. Like, it's bung day here when you walk in because you smell it in the air. Like it's It's bungy.
And I'll be honest, Elmer, I saw one person return the bowl. I saw another person go ew and did not finish it. There is no in between when it comes to this dish. I never see anything like it. You either hate it or love it. There's no in between. But this dish, I feel like it's there for a reason. There's a personal story behind this, right?
Yeah, I mean, this one's definitely an ode to my father. And, that was just like my childhood. Like every Saturday morning, like me and my brother would wake up at like 3 a.m. because we used to sell stuff at the flea market on Guam. And, whenever we were done, we would get like barbecue sticks and bok choy with my dad and pandesal, which is like a Filipino bread. Growing up as a little kid, like I didn't have my dad with me for a long time. Like, so this is like one of the things that like helps me like, remind me of like my childhood. So
this is how I know that you run your own show, Elmer. And this is what I think is most inspiring thing about a small business. Because if you have investors, if you have a lot of people running your business, there's no way that this would ever last on the menu for more than a week. Because they'll smell it, they'll see that funkiness, they smell the funkiness, and they'll go, Elmer, I'm the boss. Get this off the menu. We're going to get bad Yelp reviews. And even you said it's not the thing that people most order the most, but it's the thing that's most personal to you. And this is your show.
Yeah, and it's great that we have it on there. And I also, I'm like, there'll be days where we sell one or we sell zero. And I'm like, man, we should take this off the menu because it's just like, it's very laborious and all this. But I'm like, let's just work through it, And we have people that love it now,
Me included.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that still like come in for the first time and just order it, like sometimes based off the Seattle Times article, and then I see them like bowl to face, like they don't waste any drops, and I'm like, how did you like it? They're like, oh, we loved it, I'm like, we haven't tried anything like this before, so it's crazy because like we're one of the only places in the United States that sells this, especially on the regulars. So
there are like a dozen dishes on this menu. It's very eclectic. There's a wide range of like Mexican influence, Japanese influence, Korean influence, Filipino influences. And I look at your kitchen and I was like, where does he have room to make all of this? Like, how do you cook all these dishes out of this tiny little kitchen with just a small fryer, a flat top grill, and a very small, modest, I would even call it an easy bake oven. It's so modest. I'm not even convinced that even works, Elmer.
Being a seasoned player in the restaurant industry, like it's all about prep, right? So you want to like get ahead as much as possible, par frying things so that when things come up on food tickets, that like the pickup times aren't anything over 5 or 10 minutes, especially when we have volume going on. We have multiple tickets going on. As long as everyone's not ordering the burger, we have different stations where we can also like bang things out as fast as possible, but at the highest quality. And then also like with our front of the house people here, we do like the cold items and the dessert. So like everyone's pretty much cooking at some point throughout the night, so it's not only like things are coming out of the kitchen, like, that helps us be as efficient as possible.
And this is even crazier than your small kitchen, and that is your water tank.
Oh yeah.
So tell me about the challenge of running a kitchen with limited hot water.
This place originally, I mean, we have like an old picture. This has been an old house for a long time. So like right now, like what's going on with the hot water, that was built for an old home. Like that size wasn't built for the volume that we're doing right now. So at the height of the burger craze, we would almost run out of hot water before we closed, and we're like, there's no way we can even consider doing lunch or brunch here at the same time we have dinner service because we won't be able to wash dishes, and we know that's like a health code no. We had to rethink about like how we spray things in the kitchen, like using the cold water instead of using hot water throughout the night and using it just, to run things through the dishwasher. So
when did you open this restaurant?
Officially was December 1st, 2023.
Were you nervous? Did
Yeah,
you think it was going to bomb or?
Well, so I took a different approach to all of this. So one, I didn't really tell anyone that we were opening the restaurant. Two, we had zero marketing basically, and we still don't. We have no website. Our Instagram is like very scarce what we do. It's just there for like the hours, that's basically, and like little updates like, oh, we're going to close because we need a mental health day, or, we have a family party or something like that. But we're not like on, social media, like pushing. So that was kind of like a suicide mission. I wanted to see how strong it was to like do it old school and, just word of mouth and like people trusting what we were doing. And here we are now.
Yeah. And here you are now, and you have food writers from around the country coming to visit here. Was that just surreal to go from like, hey, I don't have a big sign out front, no marketing budget, to like just blowing up and everyone wanted your attention?
I mean, it was definitely a breath of fresh air to see that there was a response to it in the beginning, because I'm like, okay, hopefully this works out in the next couple months, because it was going to be midwinter at that time. And, in Seattle, it's dark and cold for 5 straight months. And, I feel like it was a blessing again, like having the Burger Buzz month 2 of after being open brought people in here. And the thing was, like, even up to this day, like, all our blinds are down and it looks like we're closed. We just look like an empty building, and people are always like, why don't you pick your blinds up? And I'm always telling them, like, the intent for the space was to, like, take care of the people inside, give them good service, give them good food, and that was the experience. And people are like, oh, you'd get more people inside here if you guys picked up your blinds. I'm like, do you not see what's going on inside here? Like, I think we're okay not picking up the blinds.
Yeah. So it's been a big success. What are the plans? Expansion? Is there a family friend too?
We need to get through the first year. We have an election year. There's a lot of things that are on my mind. There's the Washington tip credit thing that might expire in 2025. So there's a lot of like factors that I have to like evaluate before thinking about other things like that. I have to make sure that like my staff right now is okay. I kind of want to bring like my staff back to Guam. So, a lot of them haven't been to Guam. So like, I wanted to get them like immersed into like seeing like what the culture is, breathe the air, touch the water, like, so there's things that I want them to understand. And, I feel like that the only way for them to see that is to actually like see where I came from.
Elmer, thanks. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ton.
Coming up next on Seattle Eats, my tip of the week. Stick around. It's time for Tip of the Week. This is part of the show where I share my inside tips on getting out and enjoying something to eat or drink around the city. Seattle Eats producer Claire McGrain is here. Hey, Claire.
Hi, Tom.
What are we talking about today?
Well, I'm a beer drinker, and something I've noticed recently is it is fresh hop season, right? So all these breweries are coming out with fresh hop beers. I've had fresh hop beer before, and I like it, but I don't really know a ton of, about it or how it came about or anything. And you mentioned something really interesting before we sat down. So I want to pick your brain about fresh hop beer. And I want to start with just, what is it? Like, how is this made?
The answer is in its name, fresh hop beer. The IPA that you drink year-round, that's available around the country, is made from dry hops. Look at it as a herb, right? When you have dry oregano on a pizza, it will taste a lot different than when you have fresh oregano on a pizza. Same concept with fresh hops. The fresh hop that you find in Seattle has this bright floral note. It doesn't have that sharp, bitter finish of typical IPAs or typical dry hop IPAs.
Well, and this makes sense to me because I like fresh hop beer, and I'm not a huge IPA person. Like, I like a kind of citrusy IPA, but it is really bitter from, I guess, those dried hops is what you're telling me. So if it's less bitter, what other flavors does it have?
It has this bright floral note, kind of lemony, I would say, even sometimes peachy, sometimes fruity. It goes down differently. It doesn't go down smoothly, but it doesn't go down with a bitter note, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it when we have these lists where things that make the Northwest unique, and they'll think about Mount Rainier or Pike Place Market, but what should be in the top 10 are fresh hop beers because it's so distinctive to our region. You can't get it at most parts around the country.
Okay, why is that? I'm really surprised because every brewery you go into at some point in late September, October has fresh hop beers. I had some last year and I didn't even seek it out. It was just on the menu. So why is this not everywhere?
Because to make fresh hop beers, you need fresh hops. And Yakima is the heart of the U.S. hops industry. More hops are grown in Yakima than anywhere else across the country. During hop season, a brewer, usually with a Subaru, a pickup truck, will drive to Yakima, pick up the fresh hops, rush back, and brew immediately so you get that freshness.
So we're talking like fresh, it was on a plant 2 or 3 hours ago before they start making the beer.
Yeah, pretty much. They cut down the stalks, and that's when the process begins. The transportation, the closeness, proximity is why other people can't duplicate it. Think about this. I live in North Carolina, Georgia, and D.C. I never heard of fresh hop beers because there are no hop farms where I'm from. Now, I know what people are thinking, like, hey, FedEx, you can FedEx it overnight or whatever. But it doesn't make economic sense. I mean, unless you're Bill Gates and you can have it flown in the same day, but otherwise, you can't make it happen. Other regions can't.
You know, I love learning things about Seattle that I kind of take for granted that are unique. So I'm going to appreciate it more now when I go out and I see fresh hop beers on the menu.
Yeah, and I really encourage listeners to try fresh hop beers, even if you don't like the taste of beer, even if you think hoppy beers are too bitter. It's so distinctive. It's so Seattle.
So I mentioned I've seen fresh hop on the menus at like breweries or kind of beer specialty places. But a couple weeks ago, my husband went to PCC for groceries and came back with like a can of fresh hop, which is something I've never heard of. So is this a common thing? Is this a new thing? What's the deal?
That's one of the legacies of the pandemic. And I would say maybe it's the only positive legacies of the pandemic. Because back up here, as you recall, during the peak of the pandemic, we shut down dining in restaurants. Same concept with tasting room, bars, and breweries. They couldn't get people in to sit on their bar stool, so what they did was they started canning their beers. They borrowed beer canning equipment or they share beer canning equipment. And that legacy is just continuing. That's why you see so many breweries can beers, including fresh hop beers.
So for a smaller brewery, was it not really economical to can their beer? They just served it straight out of the keg?
Yeah, most breweries, garage size, did not can their beer. It's just a recent phenomenon during COVID.
So I'm convinced I want to go out and have a glass of fresh hop right now, but I'm at work. So this weekend, when I do have time, where should I go to get some really good fresh hop beer around Seattle?
Cloudburst. Steve Luke, the brewer at Cloudburst, is one of the best in the industry. I heard people call him the hop whisperer. He is definitely one of the most talented IPA brewers I've seen. Just bright, sharp, clean notes. When you're drinking his beer, just take it easy because he crafts them really well. And yeah, you don't realize how strong it is. And that's a sign of good craftsmanship. I had Single Hill in Yakima. I had one of their beers at the Dre. Outstanding fresh hops. Dre is a good place.
Where is that?
The Dre is in West Woodland.
Okay.
It's near Ballard.
Is this a place that carries a lot of local breweries then?
It does. A lot of craft beers, a lot of stellar fresh hop beers as well. I would suggest that people don't need to just focus on one beer unless you really like it, unless you're seeking out like Holy Mountain or Cloudburst, one of the heavyweights. Otherwise, the best way to sample fresh hop beers for beginners is to go to a bar, a tap room or a bottle shop, like Chuck's Hop Shop. And what they'll do is they'll have up to 20 different fresh hop beers from Oregon and Washington. And this is just a great way to get the range of beers. And you'll say some will taste fruity, some will taste really herbaceous. And it's just a good range to just experiment fresh hop. And that's something, again, you can't get in other areas, other parts of the country. It makes us uniquely Seattle.
And you can't get it for long, right? Because they have to be made fresh.
Yeah, you have to drink it as soon as possible. And I know what people are thinking. Well, fresh beers are in cans now, but that should come with an asterisk. Because one, you should only buy cans of fresh beer out of a fridge or a cooler. And grocery stores are not doing that. Because when they see cans of beer, they just put it on the shelf a lot of times. They need to treat fresh hop canned beers like herbs and produce. I would say the best time to drink fresh hop beers out of a can is within a week. It's not as fresh the longer you wait. It spoils.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the biggest disappointments with fresh hops out of a can. They don't all put the expiration date or drink by for best, maximum, whatever. If you buy a 4-pack of fresh hops, you drink one, today that you just brought and you drink the second can 3 weeks from now, you will notice a difference. And you don't have to be a beer expert to discover that. So yes, buy them in cans, but it's not like the regular dry hop IPA. It has a shelf life.
Okay, well, thanks for helping me figure out what I'm going to do this weekend. I'm going on a beer tour, I guess.
Let's throw some down, Claire.
All right, I'm there.
That's a wrap. The list of spots we mentioned today is in the description of this episode. Thanks for listening to Seattle Eats. The show is a production of the Seattle Times and KUOW, part of the NPR network. You can support Seattle Eats by investing in the local newsroom and the specialized beats that make this sort of storytelling possible. Please consider joining and subscribing at kuow.org/eats and seattletimes.com. Seattle Eats is produced by Claire McRain and edited by Jim Gates and Trevor Lensmeyer. I'm Tom Ben. See you in 2 weeks.